ụmụnne m na ụmụnna m ekene m unu. Afa m bụ Obiora Nwazota. Ebi m n'ala America n'obodo Chicago. Maka na etu okwu taa si dịlị m mkpa, aga m eji asụsụ ndị bekee sụọ ya. I thank the Igbo International Conference Committee for inviting me to participate in the 9th installment of this annual conference. It is a privilege I have accepted with great humility. As an architect, my preoccupation with design is unending and has largely become the filter through which I interact and dialogue with the world around me. My talk today is on the importance of design and its critical role towards defining and elevating Igbo identity. Given the constraints of time and space, my talk will be limited to generalized excursions into the matters I will raise here today. I welcome post-conference discussions and collaborations that are essential and instrumental in realizing this pursuit. Design has the power to transform and make better our lives by improving our living standards. Good design allows us to ingeniously engage smart technology to make our lives better. It has the power to communicate in clear and simple language, a philosophy of life for our contemporary Igbo culture. When combined with philosophy, good design gives order to our world. Omenala is our timeless philosophy that is ever relevant and provides us with our moral compass. We, the Igbos, are a humane people with a deep understanding of nature and her laws. Existence for us is a dual but interrelated phenomenon involving the constant interaction between the world of man and the spirit world, the visible and invisible forces, masculine and feminine forces. Our understandings of the natural world have influenced our representation and expressions as defined by our cosmology. This in turn has largely shaped our worldview and by extension, design objects used by us in daily living or in ritual. Design is not a new concept to the Igbo world. In Igbo language, the word omenka aptly captures the creative artist. Okwanka is a skilled carver, and the very highly skilled is known as husband of craftsmanship, dinka. We, the Igbos, have always had a high regard for good design expressed through the catalogue of objects we surround ourselves with. It is not enough for a carver to simply craft pragmatic objects. He is expected to bring out the object's chi from within where it has always resided. He expresses these distinctly Igbo designs as beauty marks and patterns that we enjoy. These designs are seen and appreciated in our uli art. The remarkable discoveries excavated in Ibuku, dated to the 9th and 10th centuries, are some of the finest examples of innovation of its kind anywhere on earth from that time period in human history. The artistically refined and technically advanced bronze, iron, terracotta, and fiber artifacts and their support matrix or support cultural matrix form the major historical benchmark in Igbo land prior to the European era. These objects carry with them an incredible story of the Inri institutions created by our ancestors that had achieved such a complex system of living and was highly intellectual and sophisticated, which sadly today we currently lack. Until European contact, most Africans considered themselves to be self-sufficient both materially and spiritually. Today, unlike in the time of our ancestors, the so-called first world economies we desperately try to emulate in a copy and paste fashion fundamentally understand the relevance of design in conjunction with invention and innovation. In their recognition of design's importance, European countries have given it the central place in their development. It is without doubt a distinction of the branding of modern global economies, be it as expressed succinctly in German precision engineering or the American knowledge economy championed by the likes of Apple and Google. Nations like Italy exert great influence in all forms of design and are recognized as trendsetters in various areas of our lives as modern humans. However, it is in Japan that I find a template that best illustrates the convergence of traditional and modern aesthetics, which we wrangle with daily. In Japan, we see how modern and traditional can live side by side with each other, informing and influencing the other while maintaining their unique identities. Wa, the Japanese character that refers not only to the concept of harmony and peace, but to Japan itself and Japanese culture, has evolved into a term to describe that peculiar Japanese-ness which Western cultures find at the heart of Japanese beauty. We never really left our culture for the West. We simply adapted, or rather adorned ourselves with it, showing very little regard to meaning, philosophy, or structure. I often ask myself this question: if someone came into my home today, in my absence, what in my home identifies me, the occupant, as a person of Igbo extraction? Some might easily respond saying they have Igbo art on their walls, or they have Igbo food in their refrigerators, etc., etc., etc. Guess what, my people? A great collection of Igbo art is owned by Western institutions and in the hands of private collections or collectors. Does that make them Igbo? And eating sushi, I'm afraid, does not make you Japanese either. Not too long ago, such a question would have been considered preposterous. In a short century, we have somehow willingly managed to not only neglect but to reject our institutions, which were carefully crafted over thousands of years in exchange for identities that lack any meanings or reference to our sense of self. Today, I ask, Kedu afa gi? Onye ka ị bụ? A proper appreciation of this seemingly benign question reveals how bankrupt we have become in the areas of our identity. How long we have existed with a forgotten and often twisted sensibility and a lack of appreciation of our self-worth as a people. This which I speak of is in itself not a revelation of any sort. It is nothing new to us. Truth is, this shameful abandonment of our rich traditions did not start today. In fact, the Reverend G.T. Baston said in his famous book, Niger Igbos, in which he lamented at the balance of life which was seriously being disrupted. The younger generation has shared old manners and customs freely and somewhat hastily. They are ardently grasping at all things new and foreign. Not all, by any means, can discriminate between the wheat and the chaff. This he already was observing firsthand in the first decades of the 20th century and promptly wrote about it in 1938. Please allow me to digress a bit here and speak about the curious case of our so-called Igbo national dress, isiago. These two images offer contrasting narratives in their projection of our cultural identity. One projects powerlessness, while the other projects confidence in a strong heritage. What has design got to do with dress, one might ask? To that I say, quite a lot. Symbolism and good intent, when applied wrongly, can send a dangerous precedent. We have erroneously misappropriated a colonial era imagery and symbol of Britain's portrayal of power. This I can only interpret as a sign of a deeply ingrained mentality of inferiority complex that generationally continues to make us subservient to our former colonial rulers. We are, in essence, exposing our lack of confidence in the validity of our own symbols. Let's break things down a bit here. First off, Ago is leopard and Odum is lion. Geographically, and I am sure you all have watched countless episodes of the National Geographic documentaries on lions. Lions reside in open grasslands and savannas, but are absent in dense forests, while leopard habitats are inclusive of rainforests. They are easily at home in trees, and their spotted hides acting as natural camouflage, which is why they are elusive to hunters. In Igbo, any contact with lions would have been limited to the fringes of northern Igbo land, the northern Igbo land borders of the Benue Plateau. The British used the lion as a symbol of courage, nobility, royalty, strength, stateliness, and valor because historically it has been regarded as king of beasts. It should be noted that each animal is the alpha predator in its terrain. In Igbo land, Ago symbolically represents pretty much same sentiments for us as lion is for the British. In our folklore, Ago is the spotted king of the forest. One of the most revered honorific names bestowed upon a man in Igbo land is Obuago, the killer of leopard. And so, by extension, Isiago is the perfect modern symbol to be used as a motif of our identity. That said, Odum is not Ago. Isiago printed with a lion head motif is Isi Odum. We have inadvertently put on public display our powerlessness to even address and correct a flawed design at the expense of pride. I am of the opinion that when speaking about our identity, one cannot ignore or treat as casual the Igbo national dress. This is a very important discussion that deserves addressing outside of my talk here today. It is without debate that one can say that colonialism has caused widespread involuntary intermixing of Western and African intellectual categories in the thinking of contemporary Africans today. However, it does not require disavowal of all foreign sources of possible edification. It seems to me likely that any Igbo synthesis for modern living will include indigenous and Western elements, as well as some from the East. As we elevate the standards of living in our society, our best traditions are not only made stronger, but the medium of conveyance is importantly transformed and made relevant again. Our expected natural disposition and affinity towards these innate objects become easily absorbed because it is constructed from our spirit. Good design matters. By selective distillation of our antiquities and cultural attributes, we can effectively capture the essence of our key traits and translate them into ideas that are current and relevant to the demands of a modern Igbo and, by extension, a modern Nigerian. Design for the sake of design is worthless if we do not attach structure and curation to the process of validation. We need a handbook of Igbo aesthetic, not yesterday or tomorrow, but today. Omenala ndị Igbo is one of the most elegant expressions of man in his place in the universe and his place in the cosmos. It is rich in theater and visual expressions of language and dialogue. Deep within this concept lies our voice and our precise contributions as a people to the human experience. Amamihe is a synthesis from which our modern view of self emanates. Any aspiration for a global recognition lies in our ability to synthesize and articulate an authentic Igbo design philosophy. We are custodians of our culture, and as we evolve, so does our culture. Our ancestors warned, Afame Funa. Therefore, we cannot run the risk of engendering cultural suicide through neglect or ignorance. Pivotal events in our recent history altered the course of our design evolution post-Biafra. We are an old culture with a highly evolved and sophisticated cosmology that informs our worldview. We are a people with egalitarian ideals that grants every person the right to personal success, which is given agency through competition. This has presented us with intriguing challenges of a king in every man mentality, and very well explains why we often exhibit the many cooks in a kitchen syndrome. As a people, we can either use this to our advantage or be compromised by this double-edged sword of our enterprising spirit. When applied correctly, it has produced spectacular results, such as how rapidly we regained and surpassed our pre-war endeavors. Today, the need to define and implement standards is critical to our ability to compete at a world-class enterprise scale. The future security of Ndi Igbo lies in the protection of our Omenala. As Ndi Igbo, we must reach deep into our illustrious past to find the way forward. We should not only reclaim our culture, but elevate and nurture it as our ancestors would have imagined and expected us to do. Once we commit to reclaiming control of our world, design becomes a powerful tool that activates growth in all areas of Igbo life. As we move down the path to self-reliance, design becomes the language to communicate our ethos to both ourselves and others. Imagine creating a total immersive dining experience based on Igbo cultural ethics of communal dining. An experience in which the design language of all elements, ranging from the interiors to objects, furniture, serveware, glassware, ceramics, and pottery, are all inspired by our design philosophy. This will trigger a redesign of our interiors as emphasis on perfect dining experience becomes important to our investment into the joys of healthy living as a lifestyle. We will also revolutionize the designs of our cookware, kitchen equipment, and the tools that favor our traditional cooking techniques as is found in other food cultures. I'm talking about a whole new industry created into existence, dedicated solely to elevating the art of Igbo food and culture, or Igbo food culture, I should say. Alternatively, if we continue along our current trajectory, we will end in committing cultural suicide. Imagine 1,000 years in the future, an excavation commissioned by an alien race would reveal what about the way we Igbos lived in the 20th and 21st century. My guess is they will be forgiven for thinking that Igbo culture was a work of fiction and that the land was in fact an outpost of China inhabited by African Chinese. Our current rejection of authenticity will mean that all discovered artifacts in the future will be of Chinese origin, including our traditional spirit head masks, complete with patina to give them that aged look sought by the international art market. In April 2020, last month, I launched an Igbo platform called Obiora House in Chicago with a simple mandate to create high quality Igbo content reimagined for contemporary times. This was in response to the lack of cultural contribution and representation in the diaspora. In particular, the lack of a go-to resource to experience the ideals that define the best in us as Igbos, especially when one considers how long the Igbo community has been in existence here in the diaspora. Obiora House produces Igbo content through designed objects, prints, and various media. Our mission at Obiora House is to harness the power of design, dialogue, and academic research as powerful agents to stimulate, reactivate, elevate, and reimagine Igbo culture. We are reclaiming and asserting the relevance of Igbo culture on contemporary lifestyles within and beyond the Igbo community. In creating Obiora House, I am particularly interested in this location and how we, as a community, nurture, preserve, and elevate defining elements of our identity while absorbing new ideologies woven within the larger community of the diaspora. Our vision for Obiora House is to become the place to tell our story. It is a space of belonging, dialogue, and exchange. It is a place to be, a place to meet, and an immersive experience of Igbo culture. The Igbos are one of the most recognized sub-Saharan cultures, yet she is at risk of losing her identity, due in part to misplaced priorities by various stakeholders. The narratives we create today will be a benchmark in quality and will contribute to ongoing efforts in preservation of Igbo culture in the diaspora and beyond. A property has been purchased for Obiora House here in Chicago. It includes multi-purpose spaces for exhibition and performance, a shop, Africa Cinema Parlor, Little Unicoco Kitchen and Cafe, outdoor lounge and performance space, and a web radio podcast studio. We expect to be operational sometime next year, as the uncertainty with the current pandemic has delayed this project temporarily. However, we're moving ahead with product releases starting this month. Our initial exploration are in the areas of storytelling for our children. Our folklores have been grossly neglected, and we intend to reverse this. We are reimagining and reissuing, or actually in this case, we are reimagining and issuing beautifully illustrated and designed children's storybooks. We're using simple stories to narrate complex ideas about our culture while correcting misconceptions of how we live or lived in Africa. This media allows us to give access and prestige to our culture through imagination. In the areas of masks, we in the Igbo are famed for our virtuoso carvings of ancestral spirit heads. Our contributions to the corpus of this most recognizable iconography out of Africa is unmatched. Yet, in contemporary masking culture, we are curiously silent. Today at Obiora House, with the aid of design and 3D technology, we are making our masks relevant again. We have designed new, fun, and colorful assemble it-yourself masks that kids and enthusiasts everywhere can enjoy and access our culture through participation. Here again, modern design has been applied to evolve tradition. We just completed work on one of the most important and exciting iconography of Igbo culture of enterprise, Ikenga. This will be our next launch coming this summer. I cannot wait to share this with you all. We're bringing Ikenga and the call to the right hand into the 21st century. These are exciting times to dig in and uncover treasures within our culture that exemplifies our great heritage. While I acknowledge that not every aspect of our culture needs to be revived or elevated, there are so much exciting elements about our culture that are relevant to our contemporary lifestyles. Among some of the key areas are architecture, urban planning, interior design, designed objects, furniture, fashion, herbal medicine. Herbal medicine itself actually needs modernizing. The Institute of Dibia needs to be elevated, especially pertaining to homeopathy. Traditional entertainment, curated mouth theater as purpose-built entertainment experience that can become cultural ambassadors. Folklores, reimagined for film and print media. The resurrection of Egwu, historical documentaries. We have a history of metal smithing that was put into great effect during the Biafran War. Today, we can revive that at industrial scale for peace. Design will not only revolutionize our institutions, it will give reverence and prestige that will ensure that our pride of nation is forever based on principles that defines and represents our ethos. Ndị be anyị, ekene m unu. Daalụ nụ.